Friend of the show.
We head nod when we're out at events.
Tweeted this out, and he'd stolen it from somewhere as well. So it's the topic that's been out there.
Stolen twice.
Yes, multiply stolen. He points out that the NBA has this award, right, of most improved player, not comeback, not best player, just most improved, who has gotten better the most in the course of the season. And he tweeted out his list of guys that he would pitch to be most improved player in the NFL this season. And I thought we should do likewise on the show.
I like that.
And our list is very different from his, by the way. So we may be stealing the idea, but we're not stealing the players.
Oh, he put a list out there?
He did. And I believed his list to be both wrong and crazy.
Oh, let's hear his.
Oh, now I've got to go find it.
Go find it. All right. The first guy that came to mind for me, and I'm actually it's funny because I was looking up a player recently who probably fits the bill. So I'm going to keep that player's page up and circle back. But the first player that came to mind for me was Texans linebacker Blake Cashman.
He was on my list.
Yeah, he's having an excellent season. And, he came out in 2013 with the Jets. And so what we do, because we've been covering the draft now pretty in depth for the last 8 or 9 years, you go back to what did I think of this guy in the draft? Cashman looked like a very good coverage linebacker potential and, a nickel linebacker, and he's just never really developed or played a lot of football. And this year, not only is he playing way more football, 89.9 defense grade, or overall grade, 81 coverage grade, 6 years later, 5 years later, whatever it is, looking good.
Yeah. Cashman was one of those people with terminally stumpy arms, right?
Oh, let's check.
Really short arms from what I remember. Like really short.
You really remember. Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. You really remember the measurable stuff.
Yeah.
So he's 6'1", 237.
Right.
30 in an eighth inch arms.
Really stumpy.
6th percentile for linebackers. And he's under 9-inch hands, 8 3/4 inch hands. So he's got your hand size here. But the reason why, as a 5th-round pick, he was intriguing, all the other athleticism measurables, 4.5 40, 4.12 shuttle, 6.95 3-cone, all of those stuff, 80th percentile or above.
So he's 30 and an eighth?
30 and an eighth.
So he's 6'1", 230-something. So he's 2 inches taller than I am, and his arms, which is only here to here, right?
Yeah.
2 inches shorter than mine.
Oh, you got that long? That's good.
Mine are the same as Aiden Hutchinson.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you and Hutch.
6'7".
Yeah. We need to go through it. We say this every year. We need to go through at least the official measurables. I need an official hand size.
Oh, you definitely do. Yeah.
Let's get that done.
I mean, look, mine are less interesting because I'm just a vaguely normal shaped human being. Yours would set some records.
We were talking offline about the getting to the Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
Because we weren't invited. PFF hasn't invited us to the Senior Bowl, but maybe we should go.
Jim would invite us.
Jim would love to have us.
That's what I'm saying.
We'd be down on the sideline hanging out with Jim. So I want to go to the Senior Bowl this year, at least for a couple days. And maybe we'll see if Jim can get us.
That's the way of doing it. We don't need to be there for the week. We just show up.
Let's just show up and let's see if Jim and the team will give us some measurables. Some measurables. Sunday night.
I don't do the underwear thing.
No, I'm not wearing underwear.
Right.
Like just underwear.
That's what I'm saying. I don't want to be out in a room on a stage in front of people in underwear.
You haven't been there.
That doesn't feel like a good time.
It is. It's really awkward.
Yeah.
It's just like a funny thing, right?
I don't want to do that. Now maybe
hundreds of people. There's 300 people sitting in a room.
Maybe we could
do it. Just walk out on the stage.
Would it be worth it for the comedy? This is the kind of thing PMT would do, right?
Oh yeah, PMT. Yeah, those guys. Those guys go viral doing.
That's what I'm saying.
Stuff.
Maybe it's worth it sending you out there on the stage in your underwear and having the people,
If I could guarantee a 10% listener bump, or maybe. But then you've got poor Tom Brady's got the same,
It would make a great
picture.
It would make a great charity drive forfeit. The loser has to go out on stage at the Senior Bowl in their underwear whilst everyone writes down their measurables.
Yeah, it's not that you have to do the combine drills and we get to laugh at your numbers. It's you have to go through the measurables,
right?
And do it next to all the offensive
linemen. That's what I'm saying. Standing there on the stage whilst a spectacled scout with his team polo logo is writing down your numbers.
That would actually be hilarious.
That's what I'm saying. Anyway, Blake Cashman.
Yeah, so Blake Cashman. Just. Do
you want Benjamin's list?
Yeah, I'm curious.
So his vote, if he had one and if it existed, would be Jaguars edge rusher Josh Allen. He also had on his list Jaguars linebacker Devin Lloyd, Eagles defensive tackle Jordan Davis, Ravens cornerback Arthur Mollett, Ravens linebacker Patrick Queen, and Packers quarterback Jordan Love. Now, I think several of those players shouldn't qualify for a most improved player award.
Why do you think that's a bad list?
Well, Jordan Love doesn't belong on a most improved player list because we've never really seen him play.
Okay,
he belongs
Jordan
on a breakout
Love, fair.
players list.
Josh Allen, I kind of get. It depends on what you think the baseline was.
I think he's already been good, so I don't think he really qualifies.
Devin Lloyd makes sense. He didn't
Patrick
have a great...
Queen improved last year the second Roquan Smith arrived in the building, so I think that's late to the party on him.
I mean, you can make an argument for Queen. Yeah.
Jordan Davis, I think, was good right out of the gate. He's just playing more, so I don't know that he qualifies necessarily.
Davis could qualify. Now, when he was on the field last year, he did play hurt, and he looked not great when he was trying to play hurt.
When he was playing hurt.
So when you're talking from a
but
pure
like right out of the gate, he looked good. Then he got hurt and then didn't play as much or as well. And so I'm not sure.
But he just tracked down Josh Allen.
Yes, yeah. So there's a couple of players in there I think that are solid, but generally I think that's not a good list.
Okay, well, that's why you get. So I'm going Cashman from
So,
the
for example, you started with Cashman. I think you're already away to a better start.
Thank you. Who else you got?
On my list already. Blake Cashman was on my list.
I didn't make a full list. We're just kind of like working.
I had 5 guys that jumped to mind.
Yeah, I just want to hear
so
your 5 guys.
Blake Cashman was on my list. Javon Clowney is finally having the year that he's been chasing for the last 5 or 6 years, where he keeps signing one-year deals because of this year. He's signing one-year deals thinking that somewhere down the line he's going to have this year, and at the end of it, there's a payday. Right? Only he's had so many of those years that maybe even now there's not going to be the payday at the end of it. But still, he's finally having that year. Jadeveon Clowney is having, I think, the best season of his NFL career. Certainly, by far, the best season he's had in a long period of time.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, he seemed like an easy guy to peg year over year because he hadn't played at this level, and he had been the Jadeveon Clowney discourse for us over the last few years, because our longtime listeners always know, we say, look at the pass rush grade, don't look at sack totals. And the Clowney discourse would be like, hey, his pass rush grade from pretty much 2017 through 22, same range, similar range. He's a 70 to 78 pass rush guy. And then this year he's doing it in volume. He's finishing plays. So his pass rush grade would be relatively consistent. And then some years he'd have 8, 9, 10. He had 11 sacks in 2021. He had 0 sacks when he was with the Titans, but his win rate was similar. But this year it's just a lot cleaner across the board. It's the best year he's had since
his contract
prime,
year.
Basically,
it's literally the best season he's had since the last time he hit like a real contract year, chasing the $100 million contract. Right, the final year in Houston, his contract year, and the Texans instead decide not to give him the giant deal, and he's having the best year since that point. So he already has 55 total pressures. He had 29 last season in Cleveland. He had 55 the year before that, or 53 rather.
Number of rushes.
Yeah, 53 rather the year before that. On significantly, last year similar number of rushers. The 53 year, significantly more rushes to get 53. His pass rushing grade is the best it's been since that last year in Houston. This is a massive jump forward in his overall performance.
Yeah, Clowney's a good one. There's a request in the chat for his teammate Justin Madubuike.
Good name. Good suggestion as well.
If the NFL was voting on this, I think Madubuike might win.
Yeah.
In part because he has all the sack totals. He is playing better this year. I did have to go through, but he's not like a quick win dominator overall on the interior. So that he's got a good, not great pass rush grade. So it doesn't really match the sacks. But yeah, Madubuike has been fantastic this year, and he's going to get paid because of it.
Yeah. Jaylen Johnson, Bears cornerback, who, remember, had that kind of really incredible rookie season, which even then was more flashy than it was amazing, made a ton of plays on the ball, made some really big high leverage plays, and surprised everybody because he was a second-round pick rather than a first-round pick. And then regressed, or at least didn't progress in the next couple of years, and then this season is having an incredible year, topped off by that game on Monday Night Football where he was just everywhere, made a spectacular interception, dropped another interception, but was all over the place making plays, only gave up 2 catches for 4 yards. Like, Jaylen Johnson has taken a huge leap forward, and I think is exceeding even the reputation that he had previously.
Last year he gave up almost 16 yards per reception. This year it's 8.
Yeah.
So when he is giving up catches, It's all underneath, not giving up big plays. Your favorite stat, passer rating of 37.7 thrown into his coverage. Worse than just, throwing the ball into the dirt.
Gotta love it.
Interesting that Jaylen Johnson, contract year, Matabuike, contract year, Javon Clowney, always a contract year.
Yeah. I mean, this is a real thing. Like, people kind of joke about the contract year thing, but it's real. Like, guys take big steps forward in contract years because they want the damn money. It's a thing.
We need to officially research that though.
Yeah,
a little bit more. But it's an interesting, because we love team building here. It's an interesting team building discussion. Would you rather actually let a guy get to a contract year, get that?
You want a whole team full of them. That way they're all maximizing their effort.
Get that motivated year out of him. Now, on one hand, it's like, well, you just made the guy more expensive in case you want to re-sign him. But if you don't want to re-sign him, you get the contract year out of him. He ups his value, maybe gets you a better
Isn't this like
pick.
the Saints strategy? Every year is a contract year because they've got to cut everybody.
Yeah, potentially. Get the best out of everybody. But if you're the Bears, it doesn't matter because you're in the middle of a rebuild, and it's like, oh, who cares that Jaylen Johnson has a great year? You have 4 wins.
Next guy?
Go ahead.
Nico Collins, wide receiver for the Houston Texans.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty clear one, yeah.
Yeah, Collins was already pretty good, but taking a huge step forward this year, in part because, just the workload has gone up. Like, he already has 9 more targets than he had all of last season, already has 13 more catches, but he's now got 800 yards, 5 touchdowns. His PFF grade is more than 10 points better than it was a year ago. Just his receiving grade is more than 10 points better as well. I mean, he has taken a big step forward whilst being aided, obviously, by C.J. Stroud being the quarterback. And, of course, PFF Bobby.
And PFF Bobby. Yeah, I mean, Nico's been fantastic. Remember, the years where it felt like the Texans were treading water, and Nick Caserio is GM, and I forget what else happened that year in the draft, but they traded up to go get Nico Collins. And at the time, it was like, man, with all this other stuff, with all these other holes that you have, you traded up to go get Nico Collins. And I think there's a lot of moves where Nick Caserio is becoming justified here, where they're working out. And, yeah, Nico's been outstanding. Size, speed, big playability, and good rapport with C.J. Stroud.
Last guy on my list, I think, David Onyemata, defensive tackle for the Falcons now. He had a pretty rough year last season for the Saints. He took a big step backwards. So his is not so much I think he's improved dramatically from last year and kind of got back to where he was previously with the Saints, which was one of the more destructive interior pass rushers and interior linemen generally, really. But last year took a big step backwards, and it's just sort of bounced back. So maybe he's more of a comeback player than a most improved player, actually.
So the interesting thing about Onyemata now, this is why I do think if we researched properly contract year performance, I don't know if there'd be a ton of signal there. Because Onyemata is now the opposite. He was in a contract year last year, and Atlanta paid him coming off of a down year. We would call it a down year. Again, Atlanta or the NFL could have a completely different evaluation. But Onyemata had 2 outstanding seasons as a rotational defensive tackle, 2020 and 21 with the Saints. Takes a step back last year, at least in our grading from a production standpoint, and then gets paid by Atlanta. So now it's the first year of his new contract, and he's playing great. And, I've loved highlighting him. He had that game against the Bucs back in week 7 where he just owned the line of scrimmage. He had a couple of those games this year where he's been very good in the run game and rushing the passer pretty well as well. So, yeah, I like Onyemata. But, yeah, there's the other Saints pass rusher a couple of years ago that did something similar was Trey Hendrickson. When he signed his big contract with the Bengals, got better and has literally improved his grade every single year. So that's where I do think the contract year thing is probably overblown a little bit, because if you go back and research, there's guys like Hendrickson who outperformed, or did better after their contract year and actually justified the new contract that they just got. So I think Onyemata is more in that boat. I have a name to throw in there.
Yep.
Brandon Ayuk. So he was already very good.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's a star now. I think Brandon Ayuk has gone from good to great.
Good to great.
Yeah, he has become an absolute star. I mean, coming into the season, if you were listing the 49ers playmakers, he'd be 5th or 4th, right? You say, well, they've got Debo, and they've got Kittle, and they've got McCaffrey, and Ayuk. He's a good 2, does these things. Ayuk's the star now, and he is uncoverable as a route runner, an absolute big play threat. He had all that training camp buzz and hype that's, carried over. I mean, that's just the rich get richer when it comes to the Niners. They don't need Ayuk. They didn't need Ayuk to become a top 5 receiver this year. They didn't need that. They just needed him to be, just be a good number 2. Just be that number 2 behind Debo and Kittle and McCaffrey, and you'll get fed every few games. Instead, Ayuk has become one of the best receivers in the NFL. So I think, again, if this was actually being voted on in the NFL, I think Ayuk would get a lot of votes.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. Let me pitch you a few more names. Baker Mayfield. Now, he's not improved to great or anything, but he's taken a huge step forward from absolute garbage where he was last year.
Yeah.
Remember, last year, heading into the season, you're like, the Baker Mayfield and Carolina thing might actually work. Nope. And it so didn't work that he didn't even last that long in Carolina before they got rid of him, and he ended up with the Rams where he had that one ridiculous game off the back of arriving 2 days before with the playbook, and even that wasn't great, right?
It was fault.
It was a great story rather than it was a great performance. It was a great final drive, maybe.
He had 2 good games out of 5 or whatever.
Yeah, and then was back to the Rams don't want to pick him up either, right? So he's gone from that, which is the guy doesn't belong in the NFL at this stage, to he's fine. He's playing reasonably well for the Bucs. That's a pretty big step forward, right? Another name I would pitch you. Has Brock Purdy actually taken a huge step forward, given he's now playing at the level where the narrative was, whereas before it was just, game manager plus some improv plays at the end. Now he's actually playing at the incredible level that justified the endless win streak.
I think over the last few weeks he has. I'd still want to see more. I mean, if he ends the season with an 84, 85 PFF grade, that would be, off the top of my head, the best quarterback grade Kyle Shanahan's had since Matt Ryan in 2016, and coincide with the best production, assuming the production stays, the best production probably since Matt Ryan or maybe ever. We'll see where Purdy lands there, and that would be okay. The narrative ended up being true. Because Jimmy Garoppolo in 2019 was a 78 grade. He's QB 13 or whatever in the NFL that year, which still had great production. Again, remember, Jimmy Garoppolo in the #nerd community that likes to look at EPA as a baseline for quarterback play, Jimmy Garoppolo has a lot of fans because the EPA is always good.
Oh, did you see?
And now the Brock Purdy EPA, with all those playmakers in the play caller, is that much higher because Purdy has played better than Jimmy Garoppolo.
Do you see the nerds fighting back? You're being subtweeted. Not you necessarily individually, but you and your EPA people.
I've been subtweeted?
You amongst other people. Yeah. Robbie at NFL. For the EPA as a team stat, you have to watch the film. Crowd, that's you.
Me.
EPA has the highest correlation to PFF grades of any stat-based quarterback metric. Brackets, they're all pretty close. Are we all just big dummies for looking at stats?
So EPA has the biggest correlation to what
it's essentially
PFF
the closest thing you can get in statistical terms to the PFF grade, which, as we always point out, is the thing that is tape watching.
Oh yeah, PFF grade's better though. It correlates to PFF grade better. I will say our under the hood play-by-play grades correlate better to each other than the 0 to 100 might. But I think EPA is not bad. I think it's directionally good, but you have something better out there is my main point, which is the PFF grade. The actual grade itself is better. And then the more you get into small sample sizes, right? My bigger issue is when you get into tiny sample sizes and people say, hey, this 3-game stretch, the EPA is great or whatever. And it's that's literally if your receiver drops 2 passes, you go from first to 15th in the NFL in EPA in small sample sizes. So don't use it like that. That's my bigger issue with all that.
Yeah, I just wanted to needle you about that. I didn't really want to.
Oh, thank you. Oh, you didn't want to get into it.
Well, I mean, that's a suitable amount of time to spend on it, is all I'm saying. 2 more names to pitch you. Running backs. You being running back, promoter here at the PFF NFL podcast. David Montgomery. Detroit brings him in to be the sort of power back to the Jahmyr Gibbs, whatever he is. And he ends up just being dominant behind a good offensive line. He's having the best career or the best season he's had in his career. and looks like one of the best running backs in the NFL.
I like that. I like the Montgomery pick in part because now he's creating big plays, right? He's got 70-yard run this year, and he's actually taken it to the house. The issue with Montgomery is he would be that guy that would, force 2 or 3 missed tackles and get 12 or get 10. And now he's turning 10 into 40 or 50 or 60. Not every time, obviously, but he's got a few of those big plays in there. So, yeah, I like Montgomery. He's been excellent in and around the goal line, finishing runs. So, yeah, I like David Montgomery.
Nice.
He got rushing grade is 4th this year in the NFL.
Yeah, he's absolutely crushing it this year.